Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is G here. First thing I want to tell you guys, I am going to change the name of my channel. I changed the name on TikTok and I really think it's more fitting. And if you see my videos with my face and a different name, that is going to be why. I'm rebranding my content. Now that I've said that, let's get into the Brian McKnight phenomena. He is not the only famous Black man who has done this writing off of his monoracial children and only wanting to claim his multi-ethnic or racially ambiguous children. Guys, subscribe to my channel and let's have a little chat.
Y'all bitches be killing me with that, oh, she thinks she all that. Bitch, I am. And if I'm not, who is? You? Bitch, please.
So we've canceled Brian McKnight. I am pretty sure that we have canceled Brian McKnight. I think I saw something where he was trying to have a concert somewhere and the tickets were only like $29 and they had to cancel because nobody was showing up. Brian McKnight obviously thought that his rejection of his Blackness, his Black children, would actually ingratiate him more within a different demographic than his original fan base. Because ain't nobody got time for Brian McKnight and his foolishness. But he's not the only one who behaves like this. It's funny because I have actually seen in real life, like regular dudes who have done similar things where they have older children that are monoracial, look just like them. And then when they hook up with somebody or have children that are racially ambiguous, they dote on those children a lot more. And I've seen it in real life. And one of the things that I always accustomed this idea to or this behavior with is them wanting the attention you get, the fetishization around multiracial, multi-ethnic, racially ambiguous children. There is a different thing, that's different type of validation you get in society with these type of children, right? And those men may not care any more about those kids, but what they care about is the social credit that it's giving them in society. And Brian McKnight, he found out that wasn't the case for him. He did his kids dirty. He would not even tell his son that he loved him as he was dying. Good God. I couldn't, what kind of person could be this heartless? Brian McKnight changed his name to match his new son to completely disregard the fact that there was already a Brian McKnight Jr. that existed, right? He completely disregarded those children that look like him, that reflect him, right? Completely, so that he could have the attention and the social validation of having children with a woman who already had kids, which we know so many people, when we look at Black women who have multiple children from previous relationships, whatever, they're shed upon, right? But he does, like, there's been time and time again, we see in Hollywood particularly how Black men will get with a white woman who's already got kids or even pregnant. I think that's what Seal did when he got with Heidi Klum. She was pregnant with another man's baby. And he was like, that's okay. I got you, girl. That gave him a social boost. Oh my God. Not only is he willing to be with this woman who's pregnant with another man's child, marry her, completely raise that beautiful baby with her as though it was his own. We don't see that kind of like idea when Black men do that with Black women. We can see that with Sierra and Future. How everyone shits on her. Oh my gosh, she's just a baby mama, blah. How can this other guy pretend? All of that, right? We see that. But when we see Black men do that with white women, somehow they get a little social credit. They get more of a boost. They get something out of it. And we see it time and time again. Dr. Dre is another great example of a Black man who is abandoned his monoracial, non-ambiguous children, but still supporting and doting upon his more racially ambiguous children, right? Dr. Dre had a daughter who was homeless, living in a car, and he didn't bother to help her at all, right? But when it came to his more racially ambiguous daughter, he donated $70 million to get her into university. I mean, we see this. I think the same thing with 50 Cent. We're seeing right now with the P. Diddy trial that 50 Cent's baby mama was one of Diddy's freak off people, right? A freak off girlfriend. And I am not shitting on the victims of what P. Diddy did to these women. However, 50 Cent obviously understood that this woman was someone who could be purchased to a certain extent. And even though she endured abuse, he had a baby with her. He had a baby with someone who was willing to put themselves in a situation in the very beginning, thinking like, okay, I got a man who's going to pay for this and do that and blah, blah, blah. Like they know the assignments, right? They know the assignments. So in these situations where they have these other children that look like them, I mean, 50 cents look like he spit his son out, right? Like literally look like them. They're more willing to play the doting father to the lighter skin, the ones that are connected to women that they think are going to give them social capital over just being good dads. Isn't that amazing? Like they can get more credit in certain instances because I don't think that anybody really canceled Dr. Dre for what he did, for letting his daughter, his monoracial daughter with her children live in their car. They likely blamed her bad choices. She should have chose better. She didn't have support from her father either way, but one of his daughters needed $70 million to get into university. Not a problem. He couldn't get this woman a house. He couldn't help her a little bit. I think that there's so many examples of how there are some Black men who want the social credit, the attention. That's part of it too. The attention and idea that they're good guys. Ultimately, you can't be a bad guy if you're raising someone else's kids. It must be those kids. They're the problem. It was their mother, that Black woman. She was the problem. So we see like that over and over again. And we do see that the Black woman and the children get blamed and punished while he's like, look, I'm doing the right things over here. It could not have been me. It had to be them in their situation. And that's why I couldn't stay there. I couldn't participate. Even though your kids are begging you from their deathbed for a little validation, a little love, a little peace. He said those kids were born in sin, all of them. He couldn't have made it not sinful. You know, I don't actually know if he was married to their mothers or mother or not, but either way, you were there and you participated in this sin. You're not sinful anymore now that he has moved to, the light, if you will. He's not sinful anymore. I think that we see like these examples in microcosms, like in society we can see these happen, and because I've seen it happen. I've seen Black men who have other children and then they get a light skinned one, and that one they'll parade around. That one they'll be like, oh yeah, that's my baby girl, like that's my baby boy, like that's the one they want to, like how sick is that? It's not just these men, it's the social validation that they feel like they're getting and the proximity to whiteness that these children give them, and the attention and the ability to deny the other children that they decided to father. Like they can somehow believe that the fact that they had a child with someone that they think gives them social credit, then that somehow erases the bad deeds that they're doing with their children. Like they feel like they're faultless because they feel like that woman and that baby and the fact that she was willing to do it means that he was always right and he wasn't the problem to begin with. That's what they feel like, that it erases all of that. It was their fault. And I brought up 50 Cent in his situation because of how he is constantly talking about folks, right? He is constantly talking about people making fools of themselves with women and that and the other. He has talked badly about all his baby mamas. He's disowned his previous children. But I do see more interaction with him and this kid, right? Like the kid he has with, I don't even know her name, but the one who's also involved in the Diddy case. So he doesn't mind being associated with that. It still feels like it gives him more value than it would for him to be a good father to the children he already had. There's another guy who adopts white kids. I can't remember his name. I'll write it down somewhere. But I believe he's an African. He's of African descent, not Black American, but he's of African descent, and he has adopted 3 or 4 completely white kids, and he seems to get off and love the attention that he gets with having these white children, having to explain, oh no, I'm the father. That if these kids were Black and I were white, would you have thought that it wasn't transracial adoption and blah blah blah. And there's so many differences in this, and I don't believe that all white people who adopt Black children are doing it for the best interest either. Let me just say that. But there's so many Black kids in the system. They're overly represented in the system, and children, when they get older, it's harder to adopt. Why wouldn't you want, if you really want to take care of kids, if you really want to save somebody, because even in the system, white kids are going to be treated far better than their Black or brown counterparts. Why wouldn't you do that to care for children who are more marginalized than these and have less opportunities than these kids would have, even within the system? Because you don't get the attention. You don't get to go viral with kids who look like you when you adopt. You don't get the extra validation and to get to talk like you're making some sort of movement, right? There is some sort of sickness behind that as well. And I'm not saying that he's not good to these children in some way, but he's still very white centered. And the whole idea of it doesn't necessarily come off as like just altruistic and someone who wants to make sure children have a safe home. Because if these kids did look like him, he wouldn't get the attention, he wouldn't get the validation, he wouldn't be able to tell a story to the world and go viral and become some sort of like hero and something to watch, because it would just be some dude taking care of some kids. That's it. He wants to be more than that. And so I do think it was planned and thought out in all of those aspects, because he adopted one kid, saw how viral it got him, so saw how much attention it got him. So he was like, let's do it again. Didn't even bother, like, maybe the third or fourth one. Get somebody else that might actually be suffering a bit more in the systems that we know Black and brown kids suffer the most in. No, wouldn't give him the validation and the social credit and that he really is actually seeking. And I don't say he's bad to these kids, but he's still, something's wrong with him. He has to be good to them because that would not fit into the narrative that he wants to create, right? So I think that when we look at what happened, what's going on with Brian McKnight, and thank God he's canceled, I feel like we need to cancel so much more and so many more. And we also need to investigate within ourselves why we still hold so many double standards when we think about women, particularly Black women, and then why we're willing to overlook men who behave this way when they have Black children and then they decide to have more children that are like racially ambiguous or multi-ethnic, that they feel like they can show off to the world and further invalidate their previous children. Just, another layer, I feel like, in interracial dating, the like breaking down and deconstructing our white supremacist ideologies and mindsets in our children, in the fetishization of biracial children and their identity makeup. As we're trying to raise healthy children, what does that even look like? How does it look to that child when their father's like doting on them and then left his other kids in the dust, literally in the dust in some instances? What message, again, does it start to carry out in the next generation, especially as more biracial children are? There are a lot of these men who are having these children who are continuously perpetuating this hierarchy, especially around colorism and featureism and who your mama is and all of those things. How are we really navigating these relationships? We don't talk enough about having like these blended families, how they blend them and what into and how they start to, you know, and how they start to really like define these relationships with their kids. If they're living in the home with the racially ambiguous children and they are not able to maintain the same type of activity involvement with the monoracial children, you're already creating these hierarchies in the family. And that's not the kid's fault, right? And we also know that a lot of times when Black men are in the homes with like non-Black women, how they center whiteness and supremacy culture as a part of the reason that they're there. Not all, but a great deal. And that's what these are setting, is showing you examples of. So, what does that mean in how Black identity between these two groups of children? It just shows further of a divergence, of the identities and why they feel like, what, dad chose us. And what that it looks like for Black women and how their children, especially when they have Black women, like there's so many layers to it. And it seems, these men who are just out here willy-nilly having children are still not being held to the level of accountability that they should be held to. So guys, I love to hear your comments and love to hear what you think about the new name, because I think I will be changing it with this video. So I would love to hear what you think about the new name. And guys, I guess we'll chat in the comments. So ciao, ciao for now.